What would you do if a courtroom laughed at a 10-year-old black girl, thinking she was nothing but a joke? The officer who arrested her smirked, the prosecutor sneered, and even the jury doubted she belonged. But Nia Carter wasn't here to play. She carried a binder bigger than her backpack and a truth sharper than their insults. "Sit down, little girl," the officer mocked. She didn't. She stood, and the next words out of her mouth froze the room. The faint hum of the ceiling fan marked the moment as the trial began. The courtroom wasn't supposed to feel like a playground, but that's exactly how Officer Rick Donnelly treated it. His laugh cut through the stale air like a hammer on glass, sharp, mocking, meant to humiliate. At the defense table sat a girl so small her feet barely touched the floor, a 10-year-old black child named Nia Carter. She clutched a binder so thick it looked like it might tip her over, pages sticking out in bright tabs. Donnelly leaned back in his chair, muttering loud enough for everyone to hear. "What's next? Story time. We letting kids play lawyer now." Heads turned. A couple of jurors exchanged glances, one stifling a smile. The judge, an older man with silver hair, tapped his gavel softly as if reminding the room this was still a court of law. But the damage was done. The words hung in the air, poisonous, daring anyone to defend the child sitting silently with her binder. Nia didn't flinch. She pushed her glasses up her nose and opened her folder, revealing handwritten notes in wide-ruled lines, her pencil markings dark and uneven. They looked childish, but her gaze was anything but calm, focused, like she had memorized every word she'd written. The prosecutor smirked. "Your Honor, surely we're not proceeding with this circus. She's 10. She doesn't even know what cross-examination means." Donnelly chuckled again, shaking his head. "This will be over before recess." The phrase landed like a slap. It wasn't just an insult, it was a dismissal, a public declaration that her voice meant nothing. Nia rose to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the tile. The sound silenced the murmurs. She looked directly at Donnelly, her voice steady though soft. "You think I don't understand, but I know what you did, and I know the law says you can't." Her words were precise, almost rehearsed, not loud but powerful in their certainty. A ripple went through the courtroom. Even the judge's eyes narrowed with curiosity. For the first time, Donnelly's smirk faltered, but arrogance dies hard. He leaned forward, his tone dripping with contempt. "Sit down, little girl. This is real court, not your spelling bee." Nia didn't move. She flipped to the first page of her binder, lifted it high enough for the judge to see, and said firmly, "Then let's make it real." The gallery stirred. A teacher in the back gasped. Nia's mother clutched her chest. What could possibly be inside that binder thick enough to rattle a career cop? The answer was about to change everything. The second day of trial began with a silence that wasn't comforting, it was suffocating. Nia sat alone at the defense table, dwarfed by the leather chairs and the high wooden bench above her. Her blazer sleeves were too long, cuffed twice just so her hands could peek out. Every detail screamed that she didn't belong here, that this room wasn't made for children like her. The prosecutor wasted no time twisting the knife. "Your Honor, before we waste taxpayer resources, let me remind the court this is a child. A child who should be in math class, not lecturing us on the law." His tone wasn't just dismissive, it was laced with something cruel, something meant to signal to the jury that this was already over. From the gallery, a soft laugh escaped someone's lips. Nia heard it. She lowered her eyes for a second, staring at her binder, and noticed a tear-shaped stain on the corner of the page. It wasn't from today, it was from last night when she fell asleep crying over her notes. That tiny detail burned her chest now. She gripped the edge of the binder tighter, her knuckles pale against her skin. Donnelly leaned forward at the prosecutor's table, voice just loud enough to carry. "She's wasting everyone's time. Kids like her never learn." The phrase sliced through the room. It wasn't just racist, it was final, like a verdict delivered before the case even began. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Carter, do you still intend to proceed without counsel?" "Yes, Your Honor," Nia replied. her voice steady though her feet tapped nervously under the table. She flipped open her notes and stood, papers trembling only slightly in her small hands. I may be a child, but the law doesn't say truth depends on age. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably. A woman in the front row scribbled something on her notepad, biting her lip. For the first time, doubt cracked the facade of certainty that Donnelly and the prosecutor wore. But then came the blow meant to break her. As she approached the witness stand with her papers, the bailiff leaned down and whispered, thinking no one else would hear, "Careful, sweetheart. They'll eat you alive in here." Nia froze, her shoulders stiffened. For a moment the courtroom blurred, the sound of the ceiling fan drowning everything else out. It was the clearest image of isolation, too young, too small, too alone. And yet she raised her chin, then let them try. The room shifted. Whispers rippled across the gallery. But could one child really carry a case against a decorated officer? That question lingered heavy in the air, waiting for an answer only the next witness could provide. By the third session, the courtroom buzzed with curiosity. Word had spread. A 10-year-old girl was standing toe-to-toe with a veteran cop. Reporters slipped into the back row, pens ready, cameras hidden under jackets. But Donnelly strutted to the stand like he owned the place. His uniform was crisp, badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. When he spoke, his tone carried the weight of years, and the smug certainty of a man who thought no one could challenge him. "I've been with Phoenix PD 17 years, he boomed. This child, he pointed at Nia without even saying her name, interfered with a lawful arrest. She shouted, she disobeyed, she became the threat. The words weren't evidence, they were weapons, and each syllable was meant to reduce her to nothing, to make her invisible." The prosecutor nodded along, emphasizing, "A child can't possibly understand the consequences of obstructing an officer. She's a distraction, not a defendant." Murmurs rippled through the gallery, some agreeing, some shaking their heads. To them, Nia was being erased, turned into an object, just another problem in a uniform's report. Nia rose slowly, the courtroom seeming to loom higher above her. She looked small, fragile, as though a gust of wind might knock her over. Yet when she spoke, her voice carried further than anyone expected. "Officer Donnelly, you wrote that I approached aggressively. Did you forget your own body cam?" The smirk on his face stiffened. "Videos don't always show the danger. I perceived her as a threat." Her binder slapped open on the table, tabs fluttering like flags. She pulled out a transcript highlighted in neon yellow. "Line 15 of your own report says I was 12 feet away. The video shows I never moved closer. Would you like to tell the court which version of your story is true?" The prosecutor shot to his feet. "Objection, she's a child badgering a witness." The judge adjusted his glasses, eyes narrowing. "Overruled. The witness will answer." Donnelly's jaw clenched. For the first time, he looked less like an officer and more like a man trapped under a spotlight. "I wrote what I felt in the moment." Nia stepped closer, binder pressed to her chest. "The law isn't about feelings, it's about facts." Gasps broke out in the gallery. A reporter scribbled furiously. Even the judge leaned back, eyebrows raised. For a second the balance tipped, and then Donnelly snapped back, voice dripping with venom. "You don't belong here, little girl. This is my world, not yours." The words struck like a gavel, loud and final. But as silence filled the courtroom, Nia reached for a sealed envelope at the bottom of her binder. She placed it gently on the table, her hand trembling, but her eyes steady. "Then maybe you should tell the court why your past complaints are inside this file." The gallery erupted. The judge's gavel pounded, and Donnelly's face drained of color. What was in that envelope, and how did a 10-year-old get it? The room had shifted. The gallery leaned forward, breath held as the envelope sat like a live wire between them. Judge Reynolds gestured. "Miss Carter, approach." Nia walked to the bench, her small shoes tapping against the tile, each step steady despite the tremor in her hands. She handed the envelope over. Inside were copies of misconduct complaints, 3 in the last 5 years, all nomming Officer Donnelly. Parents, a gas station clerk, even a detained driver. None had gone anywhere. But now, in her binder, they had a voice. The prosecutor sputtered, "Your Honor, these are unverified. We can't." The judge raised a hand. They were obtained through a Freedom of Information request. They're admissible for context. He glanced down, then back at Donnelly. "This isn't the first time your judgment has been called into question, officer." Donnelly shifted in his seat, face blotched red. "She's a child. She doesn't understand how dangerous." Nia stepped forward, her voice cutting through his protest. "I may be 10, but even a 10-year-old can see the truth when it's in writing." Her words cracked the tension like thunder. The gallery erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. "Order," he looked at Nia. "Do you have anything further before I rule?" She opened her binder one last time, pulling out a simple photo, her notebook page where she had written in shaky pencil letters, "Don't try to sound smart. Try to sound certain." She held it high. "Your Honor, I am certain. Certain that I did not obstruct justice. Certain that Officer Donnelly used force without cause. And certain that this court deserves the truth." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even Donnelly couldn't meet her eyes. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. "Miss Carter, your defense is thorough. The charge of obstruction is dismissed." He paused, voice heavier now. "And I am forwarding these complaints to Internal Affairs for immediate review." Gasps. The gallery erupted again, but Nia just lowered her binder slowly, exhaling for the first time all week. Her mother rushed forward, tears in her eyes, wrapping her daughter in her arms. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Nia only whispered to her mom, "We made them listen." And that's the truth that echoed louder than the gavel. Justice doesn't always come from titles or age. Sometimes it comes from a child who refuses to be silent. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Nia's place? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because voices like hers deserve to be heard.